I don't write any new content. All content is written with AI, but only first drafts. Nothing is directly copy and pasted. If you're going after new keywords, blog or otherwise, if it's less than this threshold, you can reliably assume you'll rank pretty easily. All the AIs are looking for is clarity and credibility. They want clarity about your brand and credibility. Are you a thing that I can believe, trust, that is worth citing?
So are there any common misconceptions or mistake agencies make with the GPP optimization today?
The biggest one I hear all the time, people say, I've been in business for 20 years and the people who are outranking me, I've never even heard of them. I was here forever. Like, how could I not be beating them? I honestly think Google isn't sure. I think they took EAT and threw it out and instead said Reddit, forums is the answer.
Welcome back to the another power-packed episode of the Agency Insider Show, where we decode what's actually working right now for digital agencies, SEO founders, and consultants. I'm your host Navneet Kaushal, and today I am joined by someone who has been at the intersection of SEO, PR, and digital visibility for years, Randy Roberts. Randy, welcome to the Agency Insider Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about just everything.
Same here. Now, before we get into today's deep dive, give our listeners a quick look at your journey. I mean, you have worked across PR, digital visibility, SEO, and helping businesses scale their footprint. Now, what has shaped your thinking the most in the last few years?
Oh, geez. Okay, so I got a degree in PR, in public relations. But while I was in school, I had an SEO job just to kind of pay the bills.
Okay.
But the goal was never to get into SEO. But by the time I had a degree, none of the PR jobs wanted me. The SEO places wanted me. And so I said, actually, I kind of like this anyway. So I've been doing SEO now for 9 years, almost 9 years, and always in agency settings. And right now running my own agency.
Wow.
And yeah, so just been doing the thing.
Okay. Now, let's jump into first part of our episode, which is the local SEO secret weapon, and we talk about backlinks to GBP, and I'm very excited to hear more about it. And of course, local SEO has exploded in complexity. Our people have made it explode into complexity. I still think it's simple, but people talk about proximity, prominence, behavior signal, GBP
all
activities,
that stuff.
But you have been emphasizing backlinks to Google Business Profile as a massively underused advantage. Now,
massively.
Yeah. Now, when we say backlinks in the local context, are we talking classical backlinks or are we talking geo-relevancy, brand mentions, or neighborhood local ecosystems? What exactly do you mean by that?
Great question. So all of the above. So I earlier this year ran an offer that I did for most of the year, where I would offer, brands had to meet some criteria, but I would offer a free till you rank. If you met certain criteria, you had to have a certain number of reviews. You couldn't have had any suspensions. You had, like, there were a couple things that you had to have to qualify. You couldn't be a service area business. You had to have an actual address. A few kind of like baseline items. We offer a free till you rank, and how that happened is they would say, I'd say, give me 10 keywords that you'd like to show up for, and if I can get you up for one of them, meaning you can go search and you're in, I mean specifically the GMB, or the GBP. Now I still haven't updated the language in the map pack. You know what I'm saying? And you can show up for one of your 10 terms, and then once I can show that you're up for one of those 10 terms, then recurring payments start. And it worked. We did it for a bunch of clients. I don't offer it anymore, only because free attracted cheap or people who wanted something for nothing. I thought it would solve the problem of, like, how can you prove this is valuable? And I think for some it did, but for most it was just told them that it was cheap. But we went refining, and by the end, we were doing almost exclusively backlinks to the GBP.
Okay.
So links to, like, so specifically, like, links to the CID URL, the little identifier URL, links to the share URL. So if you hit the share from the GBP and then you get the whole URL, even things like, so a lot of this is guest posting type of stuff, and definitely brand anchors, your keyword rich anchors, a healthy mix of both. Because I think if you do only the keyword rich, I think it might set off alarms. I didn't ever try just doing one because I was too afraid that it would cause a problem. So just did a blend of the two and never ran into any issues. Never haven't had any suspensions. Everything worked totally fine. Including, we got a lot of success doing things like Google My Maps and batch geos. Google My Map, you're probably familiar, it's a Google Maps feature where you can go plot a bunch of points on a map, fill the information with each location with text and links and whatnot, and then you can embed that map on a page. Batch geo is similar. You can map out. It's a third-party tool that lets you do that. A lot of different things where I can embed locally relevant, including GBP embeds onto the guest post page. Embedding driving directions, you can get specific driving directions and embed those onto the guest post. So to your point, yes, a lot of branded, a lot of non-branded, a lot of locally relevant stuff, all embedding right. Almost exclusively we're doing off page. Not 100%, but 90% of what it was purely backlinks. Once it got turned off, we did start to see declines, but it ended up after a while, we did this, and with it we would supplement with like strategies to get more reviews and more consistent reviews to help kind of keep the staying power. But while it was running, it worked really well. And so we were able to fulfill on a free till you rank in most cases. Some cases it just didn't work, but that was the minority for sure. But yeah, largely backlinks to one of a variety of places. Yeah.
So were you doing changes to the GBP at that time, or just exclusively backlinks only, not doing any changes on the GBP?
Some, yeah, little. I mean, nothing crazy, honestly. Things like a lot of these local businesses didn't have their services very many of them put out. If they only had 2 or 3, but they really could have put in another 10, if you putting those in and then having the descriptions be very keyword rich and very thorough. We did a little bit early on of like on-site work as well, and it ended up just kind of being a pain. Like it ended up causing more problems. I'm sure you know what I'm saying. Like, it ended up causing more problems than it helped. But had we had full access and no one ever had any opinions about us touching their site, best case scenario, yeah, would have done on-site as well. But it ended up being easier to just largely do the backlinks, and still got decent enough results that we were happy with.
Okay. Now, all of these backlinks you were building, what was moving the needle the fastest as per you?
Good question. Like these ones that I talked about, like these links, CID, share URL, my maps, batch geo, probably driving directions and Google Map embeds. I would say those are probably the big ones. We did other things as well. Like we did some press releases. I had someone else recommend, a friend of mine recommend that he was getting good results putting links to, kind of weird, putting links to the social media accounts that are linked in the GBP. And so we tried a few other things, and it's tough to tell you which thing exactly is the one. You know what I mean? In the same way with SEO or with non-local SEO, it's like, well, which thing got us the rankings? It's like, well, you did all 13 things you were supposed to do, and surprise, it worked.
All the boxes, right?
You checked all the boxes. So it's tough to say like this one made the biggest difference, but I feel like those links, the CID and the share URL, I think had a lot to do with it. And then I think a lot of the locally contextual relevant links, like the map related embeds, I think those made a significant difference as well.
Okay. And you have also done solid work with PR driven SEO, right?
Some, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this directly. Do press release based link still have a role for small local businesses?
Yes.
I really have to get it out.
Yeah, right. I don't think that it nearly as powerful as it used to be. Like once upon a time, I think a press release was really impactful. Now I think I still recommend press releases, but largely for AI, showing up better in AI because it just gets a mention out at scale.
Okay.
It gets lots of like brand mentions out in one action. But I think Google's gotten wise to know that a press release isn't necessarily a stand-in for true credibility, and I think it used to be, but I still recommend them, but more for the AI side than for traditional rankings.
Okay.
Unless I will with the caveat of like if you're small, you're still starting out, you have very little backlinks. Doing a couple of those, I think, is an organic enough behavior that it kind of sends trust signals of you're behaving the way we suspect a smaller business to behave. And it almost, I don't know if it will boost your rankings, but I think it will build some subtle trust signals that makes your brand seem more legitimate just by nature of doing stuff like a press release that seems like something a legitimate brand would do.
Okay. Now, so are there any common misconceptions or mistake agencies make with the GPP optimization today?
Common misconceptions companies make with GBP optimization. Uh, yes, the biggest one I hear is why. There's one of two things. I hear all the time people say, I've been in business for 20 years, and the people who are outranking me, I've never even heard of them. I was here before they were born, or
Right.
I was here forever. Like, how could I not be beating them? And
Right.
I'm sure you've heard this before, where there's to some degree, Google doesn't have the real world context. They don't know that you've been in business. Well, they might know because you can set your open date in GBP, but you're the best, the longest, the fanciest, the most connected, whatever in your area. They don't know. They're just doing math on the back end to find out what site is the most relevant for the keyword. And if the competitor's site does better on the math, they win. And that real world context they don't have. And then the other one is probably I have 100 reviews and the person beating me has only 70. How, if I have more reviews or a higher star rating, 4.7 out of 5 stars, how can they be beating me? And I, it's often an epiphany that quantity doesn't matter, but frequency doesn't matter
Right.
nearly as much as consistency. And so
Right.
very often while we're doing these backlinks, we would kind of set in place how can you get more consistent reviews. It doesn't matter if you get 100 in 1 month and then none for the rest of the year. It won't have as much effect as if you had 10 every month for the next year. You'll beat anyone out if you're more consistent. And so I think that's a big one. Because reviews matter for ranking, but reviews matter for conversion is one of the biggest parts for conversion. I feel like reviews kind of have that dual value, and I'll show up higher and I'll convert more because people look at those once they're finally bottom of funnel and trying to decide where they're going, who they're going to spend with. They'll definitely look at those reviews, and if you've got a lot and a lot of recent ones, chances of you winning that deal are better. So reviews, I think, hold more weight than just ranking ability for sure.
Okay. Are there any other GBP factors beside backlinks you consider are important?
Oh yeah, I've recently come to believe that I think backlinks might be one of the bigger ones because we're able to get get good results focusing almost exclusively on those. If for brands, like if I owned, if I was to be in house at, I don't know, an electrician's office or something where we're like focused exclusively on this, I would definitely focus more on getting the GMB, GBP all baked out, getting the services all in there. But I think there's a lot more to do with the interplay between the Google Business Profile and the website.
Okay.
Like if I had it my way, every service that we have in the GBP has a matching page on the site. So like the information from the GBP should reflect the site as closely as possible. If you've got 30 services listed here, but 2 service pages on your site, I think there's some discrepancy there that Google says, so what do you offer, really? What actually are you? In the same way how, if you look at citations, citations are, of course, a big deal.
Right.
Having consistency of citations in your NAP matters. I would say consistency between your GBP and your website matter as well. Even down to things like that of like, I've got 10 services listed in GP and only a couple service pages. I don't think if you don't have that, you'll never rank. I mean, obviously we see it all the time, but one of the boxes that I think you should check that make a difference is having both of those consistent, even in little things. As consistent as the two can be, I think goes a long way.
Okay. All right. Now let's move to our next segment, which is the AI-driven algorithm update. I mean, let's be blunt. In the age of LLM-driven search, algorithm updates don't even feel the same anymore. It's more like model shifts, AI rewrites, reindexing logic, and behavioral modeling and everything. So it's not exactly algorithm update anymore.
It's not in the same way, for sure. That's a nice way to say it so that people understand, but you're right. Nothing behaves the same anymore.
Right.
That being said, even now, I'm seeing some way, even just in the last year, how AI has evolved and updated a little bit. If I take an algorithm update to mean a traditional SEO algorithm update to mean that the search engine has gotten wiser to how it should best serve results, and then it updates to best serve results, even at sometimes to the detriment of tactics that are working.
Okay.
AI is, I think, in some ways doing that. It's slower to do that, but it's only been out. AI has only been a thing for a couple of years, and so when Google was this young, it was a wild west. Anything went. I mean, when Google was this young, you could have bought 100 links from a Filipino casino site and put it to your site, and you show up overnight. Anything went when Google was this young. And so I think if we were to fast forward, I think what optimizing for AI and LLM platforms will look very different in the future. For example, so I recently saw some brands who were prioritizing recency. So it's kind of been published. You've seen how a lot of AI platforms, ChatGPT in particular, really prioritize recency and freshness of sources.
Right.
And I saw a number of examples where people were updating their sitemaps and updating their content like multiple times a day. And I found tools that would update your sitemap, update your content, whatever, or even just the publish date every 15 minutes.
Right.
And I saw those working for a while. I used those for a while because it worked. And then GPT-5, it stopped working. I think they still prioritize real recency. And I think that this is an example of an algorithm update, for argument's sake, where they got better at understanding, not perfect, but closer to understanding truth behind recency, where they can say, you've updated every 15 minutes for the last 2 weeks. That's not real. But freshness and recency in a more real context, they still prioritize freshness and recency, but in a more real way. So even some stuff like that, they're getting wiser, they're getting smarter. And there's a couple things that I'm looking for to kind of future proof as best we can, because we don't know what's really going to happen, but we can understand to some degree what's the underlying elements that the AIs are looking for. And I'll just dig into that if you'd like. As I see it, all the AIs are looking for is clarity and credibility. They want clarity about your brand. Who are you? What do you do? What's your thing? And credibility. Are you a thing that I can believe, trust, that is worth citing? So I put all activity for AIs under clarity and credibility. And a lot of, I think, the modern SEO space talks a lot about credibility. Third-party citations, get your brand mentions out there because it does work for the time. We lean heavily into credibility, and I think we don't worry as much about clarity of, can it understand our company and our brand and our website, and does it say the right things when it references us? Is it making stuff up? Is it saying helpful things? One of the ways that I found, and I've looked all over for ways to find this. I've found a couple tools that I really like. I have no affiliation to these tools, so I got nothing to me. But one I really like is, it's called lightsite.ai. Really good, where it will basically take your company's, all of your brand information and put it all into machine readable JSON LD format. And so when the AI bot comes, it just comes to the repository of JSON machine readable format and doesn't go parse through the HTML. We've essentially just like given it a streamline to something it can understand. Essentially, as I've understood it, websites were meant for humans. Websites were always meant for humans to come and read and understand. And we've never had, in this same way, websites meant to communicate with other machines. Kind of with the Google crawler, but it's much more sophisticated than what like ChatGPT's crawler can do. So there's a number of tools, of which Lightsite is one of them, that I've quite enjoyed, where it will, when the bot comes, it doesn't even access the front end. It just comes right to the repository in the back end, where all the information you needed to have, our customers, our products, our services, is all in machine readable format that it can just query quickly and get all the information it needs right away.
Okay, so this is one way where you use Lightside and link to that JSON file, or maybe an MD file from the, or a TXT file from the footer of your website, so that it can be crawled, or how does it work?
Yeah, so you've got to implement some in the sitemap, like in your sitemap, and it will, and if I'm not mistaken, it will even have like an injection, maybe it's like a SQL injection, where it will, once the bot comes, it will just redirect it. It'll just tell it, come here, this is where we need you to be. This is where all the shiny information is that we need you to read. And it can get its clarity immediately. I mean, not immediately, but significantly faster than it would if it had to parse through the HTML. And it's all in like in data endpoints, so it can understand real quick. And even from this point, you can have sort of a menu of third-party reviews. Say if you need to reference a third party, here's some good examples. I've worked with a number of brands on this, and we can quickly start to gauge how are the tools referencing our site. What did they come to look for and they couldn't find that we can provide, and where do we go from here? I think, in terms, again, to the point of clarity, can it read, can it understand, can it find your website? I think, however the LLMs change, and they will, can it find, can it understand, will always be central. With Google updates, crawlability, accessibility, indexability never changed from the beginning. Crawlability, indexability, accessibility have always been the foundation of search, even from the early days of Google. That's never changed. And I think the same holds up for AI-based search. It's just not as fun, it's not as sexy of a topic as getting your name out there a bunch and having all these mentions and the quick wins, so to say. And I think focusing on clarity of your brand's understanding will hold out as AIs change, and they definitely will.
All right. Now, with AI search, whether it's, of course, Google AI Move, Gemini, ChatGPT, or Perplexity, or any other AI-powered retrieval system, what do you believe will matter more over the next 12 months?
Oh, man. What will matter more over the next 12 months? I believe that across all platforms, they'll trend towards signals of trust more and more. Same with Google, you know what I mean? Like everything comes back down to, is this a trustworthy source? And I suspect that to some degree, brand mentions, as we talk, like you could just kind of almost spam your brand name out there and it will work, will begin to have less of an impact, in the same way that backlinks have prioritized from quality over quantity in a lot of ways. If you get a few good ones versus a lot of little ones, the same or better. I think it will start to trend more towards quality over quantity, where is these if I is this brand being cited where it matters and can I trust it versus is it being cited a lot? Uh,
Okay.
I could see us moving more in a trust first, not quantity first uh, type of model for AI search.
Okay, now let's zoom out into this strategy. Now, what are three proactive moves should a business start today to align with all this to be ready for 2026 and beyond?
For AI or just in general?
AI?
For AI. If you've not got a tool to help, like I mean, I for all of my clients, I'm putting them on something like Lightsite because I think it's helping. But if nothing else, if you've got like no cash, if you've got nothing, no like spare money to invest in a thing, I would say um, look through your site and is there important information that is not there? For example, if I look through your website, small company, can I get a gauge of pricing? You are
Okay,
any service provider, say you tree service or something. Uh, can I reasonably find pricing? Yes, no. Do you service my area? Yes, no. How quickly can you come out and do the job? Like, just think of like what are the questions someone may have, and is that information found somewhere on your site? Again, to the point of clarity. Can a human being find all the information they need somewhere on your website?
okay,
If not, then neither can the robots. The robot, if a human can't find it, the robots definitely can't find it. So if someone is trying to find your brand and they want to know about pricing and it's not on there, then it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, AI is going to make it up. And that's arguably worse than having it say nothing, is it say something wrong. So I think a lot of brands have a lot of information that's just not on their website that is helpful. And I think we believe that will get them to join a call. We'll give some cryptic information on the website. They'll join a call with us, and there we'll give them the information. And I think that can work sometimes, but as things evolve, I think those who can provide clarity up front are gonna win long term. And I think gatekeeping crucial information about your brand or service or offering uh, may have some utility now, but I think long term may be harmful.
okay. Okay, now how would you advise agencies to incorporate AI update volatility into keyword targeting and content planning?
Man, how should agencies use AI for keyword targeting and content planning? So,
Who would you advise them to use?
how would I advise them to use it? Okay.
Yeah,
So, for me, I don't write any new content. All content is written with AI, but only first drafts. Nothing is directly copy and pasted. Everything that AI writes every first draft of new content forever and ever.
okay,
Uh,
okay,
does it write the final draft? Not likely. It almost always has to go through some level of human eyes
okay,
because it's just not, it maybe someday it will get there, but at least now I see agencies either not using it at all, which is unwise, or frankly using it too much. And that's also unwise. I think there's a middle ground where AI can make a compelling first draft and do compelling editorial work of you could clean this up here, you could tighten this up here, you could get more specific there. Proofread. I think AI, a lot of my use of AI is proofreading and recommending how to improve. And
right,
I think that's not as fun of a thing to use AI for, of proofreading and editing, but I think it's wildly helpful.
right,
Any new content, um, you can either first drafts and or edit, suggest, proofread, recommend. There's a lot of value there. And even
okay,
so, I have had some instances that have been helpful where I'll take a brand and I'll get as much as I can, 10,000 words, say, of true
okay,
human written content in their brand style. Like take either it's their
Okay.
blog or their whatever else, and I'll feed that into a custom GPT purely so that it understands tone, style, and syntax, sentence structure. And I have a custom GPT just for that brand, and it's
Mhm.
just their style,
Okay.
purely not just so that it writes like them. And
Right.
that gets closer. That gets closer to being good, uh, but still not a one shot. But those are the closest content that needs the least amount of revision. Still needs some, but needs the least amount of revision is when there's a custom GPT tailored only to their brand's tone and style. Assuming the brand has a specific, I mean, that usually it's only larger brands that have that, but if they have it, that's the closest to content that doesn't need as much revision.
Okay. Now, so when we talk about the I mean, what tactics do you believe is going to quietly die because AI systems won't reward it anymore?
Oh, I don't know how the LLMs.txt thing ever came about. I'm not confident that ever did anything, frankly. I don't think the LLMs.txt makes much of a difference. I could be wrong. I mean, like if I see decent evidence, I'll be the first to say that I'm wrong, but I don't know how that one ever made it onto the scene and ever made it into the conversation because I don't think it actually I don't think it ever made a difference. But I think hopefully soon we stop talking about it because I don't think it does anything. But I've been wrong before. Um, by contrast, I think the thing that has had a bad reputation but will be come out to be a bigger deal than it is schema markup. I think
Okay.
schema markup will gets a bad rap of like, it doesn't make any difference. But again, to the point of clarity, that's JSON LD formatting. That's the language of robots. That's the
Right.
language that it speaks. It's JSON LD, and so I think schema. I think a lot of folks will say, "Oh, I implemented schema and I didn't get all this traffic, and therefore I didn't sell my business because of all this traffic because I implemented schema." But it's about clarity, and so did it understand your brand better? Probably. So I think that schema will I think schema will have a reckoning where someday we'll realize, oh, the LMs.txt doesn't matter one bit, and we made it to be this big deal, but schema actually makes some impact. Even again, maybe it doesn't boost your rankings overnight, but it does give more clarity. And I think we'll have a resurgence of people realizing, oh, schema actually was where it was at.
Okay. Now, let's move to our next section, which is EEAT. Now, EEAT has been the religion of SEO for years. Every consultant, every agency deck,
Oh
every
man,
audit screams it, right? Now, but in the
yes.
last 12 months, something interesting has happened. Sites with zero classical EEAT are outranking authoritative brands. AI search isn't citing traditional marketers, and real tests show that EEAT signal might be largely decorative. Now, my question is, so let's address the elephant head on. Is EEAT still real, or has it become a narrative Google uses without it being the true driver of rankings?
EAT is propaganda at this point. It is
Okay.
Google propaganda. In my opinion, Google propaganda. It's what
Okay.
it's Google saying, "Do as I say, not as I do." I think, once upon a time they meant it. Once upon a time they did actually want that, and I think AI broke the EAT model. I made a blog about this a little while ago, where in the quality rater guidelines,
Mhm.
um, they have, I think it was like 26, 23. There's 23 pages that they give examples of uh, low quality, okay quality, good quality, great quality, highest quality pages, and they give examples, actual links to pages that
Okay.
they would deem highest quality pages. And there are 23 links, specific URLs that they say these are the highest quality pages, examples of EAT signals that are of the highest quality. So earlier this year, I went through all 23 of those and looked at how they've performed. Terrible. Almost all of them have been hit by one or two spam updates in the last year. So Google's own examples of highest quality pages have been penalized by Google's own algorithm as spam. and I've got some screenshots I can show you if you'd like. So
Yes.
let's do it. Come on. Can you see this?
Yes.
So these, and you can go reference this in the quality rater guidelines. So this is nothing that's like hidden or buried anywhere. These are 23 pages. This is all of them. This is the pages, title, and a link to them of all different kinds. There's like news type pages. There's informational. They give Yosemite National Park as an example. They give all kinds of different types of pages as examples of the highest quality pages. Some of these don't exist anymore. This one didn't exist anymore. This one didn't exist anymore. But all of these are there. Here's one example I'll give you. Handletheheat.com is one where they give the example of handletheheat.com. I'll just open the page actually.
So just to be clear, these all examples are given by Google.
In the quality rater guidelines. If you open up the PDF, these are linked in the actual documentation.
Okay.
They give this example in the quality rater guidelines of highest quality e-a-t. This is a cookie recipe page where they took and they used a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. As the control, and made slight changes and variations in technique and ingredients to show how they affect the cookie. So they made a control recipe, and then they did more baking powder. Remove baking soda from recipe and used a half a teaspoon of baking powder instead. And they did like a dozen different slight variations to recipe to see how it impacted it. And they clearly cooked all the recipes. You see pictures of each individual one, firsthand experience on every single variation recipe. And Google themselves cited this page as an example of high e-a-t because the author, and this is the quote, the author of this blog has documented her extensive experimentation with chocolate chip cookie recipe experience and her expertise and skill demonstrated in the large quantity of unique, original, and very satisfying main content. That's a quote. Basically saying, this page is great because, and this is from Ahrefs for this exact page over the last few years. Right here in June, spam update. Right here in December, spam update. And this site's been hit by not only just regular algorithm updates, but spam algorithm updates. Like, it can't both be the highest quality page on the internet and spam. How does that make sense? Google has lost the plot, and there's many examples of this. This is a page from TampaBay.com. It's an investigative journalism piece about a toxic work environment. Again, you can go read into any of these. June spam update, November core algorithm update. In both cases, sites were destroyed. This is the domain as a whole, just dying. This one is a ball wedding gown dress page, considered high quality because it had an abundance of pictures plus options to view by price range, style. As part of what makes a page so satisfying. It demonstrated in depth and types of content. Hit by a core algorithm update.
Wow.
There are not all of these pages, the caveat, there's 23 of them, not all of them are really meant to rank. Like, one of these that it gives is the IRS. Like, this is one of the pages that it gives is tax forms and publications from irs.gov. You're not really looking to rank for keywords with this page. It's just like, here's the forms. So the caveat I give to this is that some of these aren't meant to be like organic players. But some of them are, like the articles from the LA Times, articles from Tampa Bay. There's a number of these that Google has both said is the highest quality content on the internet, the ideal we should strive for, and then at the same time call it spam on more than one occasion. To me, I can think of no better example of we've lost the plot. We don't even know what we're talking about anymore with with e-a-t. And if you couple that with Google's recent Opal, I believe it's called, their own suite of AI tools to churn out content, like, we've now forgotten the point of human first content and are now just making tools for you to turn out AI content at scale, almost encouraging you not having firsthand, highly expert, highly authoritative content. So in my mind, once upon a time, because clearly this content was doing well for a long time. This clearly,
Right.
it was up and up and up for years. This was in 2021. This content went up and up and up until around here in summer of last year, summer of 2024. And then Google said, actually, you're spam now. And they've completely forgotten it. I honestly think now that EAT is what Google says as an excuse to penalize whoever they want. I don't think they actually mean it anymore.
Right. Now, coming back to, if EAT is not a ranking signal, or it was a ranking signal once, and is it not, what exactly is replacing it?
Great question. Great question. What is replacing it? I honestly think Google isn't sure. I think personal opinion, I think they took EAT and threw it out and instead said Reddit. Forums is
Right.
the answer. I think they tried to say what we mean by EAT is first-hand experience, is reliably written by a human.
Okay.
And they said, oh, Reddit's reliably written by humans. This is the place that we can discern has likely got lots of true human content. So forums now became the stand-in, and
Okay.
looking at somewhere, where can we point to that says that there's a high likelihood of human first-hand experience. And there's no way that they can tell if you write a page with ChatGPT and say, now write it in first person, so it says, I did this, I did that. Like, the algorithm's just doing the math. It can't tell. It can't tell if you actually did it or not. So I think they instead said, what if we just find third parties that we can some level of reliability trust, like Reddit, and call
Okay.
that EAT and check the box and move right along. I would guess something to that effect is probably what's replacing it. For Google as a business, I don't know if it has much trickle down to like individual site owners, but I think as a business, they say, yep, EAT, we check the box. We provide an expert and authoritative source to users now that we have this third party that is very reliably human written. Kind of.
Okay. And so now, how has this shift influenced your approach to content strategy and audits?
Great question. Great question. EAT before, I think it always was. So it was always something that just gave the quality raters. We don't have a ton. There's some things we can point to, but not a ton that can say that like what elements of EAT got integrated into the actual algorithm. And so how much of it is in the math and how much of it is just what we talk about, we can't really know.
Yeah.
That being said, EAT in the way that Google talks about it, I'm contradicting myself here a little bit, because I just said that the AIs will trend towards trust in the future. And
Right.
and so I think that they'll trend towards trust, but I think trust will mean, again, I think in a lot of ways, clarity. How much can I understand about you? And I think those parts of EAT still hold up. Like there was a big push for a while of like blog or author bios as an example of like clarity, like who's behind this website.
Right.
I don't think necessarily having a bio in your website will shoot your rankings up in any meaningful way, but
Okay.
that's a decent example of clarity. Can a crawler understand your brand? So the parts of EAT that were about clarity, I think still have value, but more for the AI side than for the traditional like Google ranking side. In addition, I worry less about I worry less about like having, in terms of audits and things. I think for a long time, a lot of SEOs got distracted in EAT of like, can we prove expertise? Can we prove authoritativeness in our content? And I think for a lot of people, they've just kind of, myself included, come back to basics of like, is there a positive user experience? Is the content helpful? Does it answer the question? I think in a lot of cases we just kind of reverted back to like what we know in the face of EAT being, I think, largely propaganda for Google to punish whoever they like for whatever reason they want.
Right. The only thing which I see with the EAT, a lot of people talking about, oh, written by this person, verified by this person, and trying to do everything, which actually, I mean, the content which doesn't even needs to be verified by someone would have verified last time. Why the hell do I need to be verifying my opinion with someone? It's just,
You're exactly right.
right.
And to your point, I've seen this example with, I think it's Healthline. Healthline has every page medically reviewed by some doctor or somebody. And my light got all weird there. Medically reviewed by somebody. And again, since they play in like the medic and the YMYL space, sure, I could see that. But I don't know, if your website and you sell, I don't know, bookshelves, you sell bookshelves, you sell office equipment. Do I need to have my thing reviewed by an office equipment specialist?
Right.
Is that really going to make your thing more like credible? Is someone suddenly going to go, wow, an office equipment specialist reviewed his content? Like, I wouldn't buy it. That wouldn't make me buy,
Right.
But I don't know.
Right. Now, let's move to the final segment of our show, which is something we talk. I mean, you have been talking about secretly the keyword ranking weight class method. So, if I'm correct, you have developed a method describing as a replacement for keyword difficulty, keyword ranking weight class, but you have never shared this detailed publicity. So, could
Correct.
you introduce us this process?
Yes. So keyword difficulty is the stand-in thing for how hard is it to rank for this keyword.
Right.
And every tool has their own keyword difficulty. Moz has their own, Ahrefs has their own, SEMrush has their own. And
Right.
I think they're all different. Ahrefs is largely based on backlinks, but
Okay.
I get content to rank all the time, and I think many SEOs do, without any meaningful backlinks. So like,
Okay.
so if it's all about backlinks, but I can do without backlinks, then what does this metric matter? So to me, in my own mind, this is what it is. It's not about backlinks. It's about can Google. Okay, so this is what it is. If I think of Google as a business,
Mhm.
and the customer is people who want ads,
Right.
people who want to spend money for ads. That's their customer, which then means that the product is people's attention, right?
Okay.
Essentially, they're selling their attention to the consumers, and content creators are the worm on the hook to get the product in to sell. SEOs, I think, to the economics of search, they're the worm on the hook. So if you can, I think it's a game of how much do I trust you as a site owner to provide a good experience and capture customers. And I think the best indicator of how well Google trusts a site is how well it ranks. So more than the number of backlinks, it's how much is Google recommending you to people at large. So basically, keyword ranking weight class is this. Pick whichever
Okay.
tool you'd like. I like Ahrefs, but pick whichever one you like. Export all your keywords, all of
Okay.
them.
Okay.
Only filter them by only positions 1 through 10. So you're only your page
Okay.
1 keywords, and remove branded terms. So you've only got page 1 non-brand terms.
Okay.
And pull the search volume and keyword difficulty for each of your non-branded page 1 terms. Then, and I'll actually, after this, I can share a spreadsheet with I'll put together a spreadsheet and a prompt that I usually use for ChatGPT, how people can
Yes.
find this themselves.
Okay. We'll put
And
it in the show notes.
we'll put it in the show notes, and start with finding the average search volume for all your keywords. So you take the volume of all your page one non-branded terms. What's the average? Do the same thing for keyword difficulty. What's the average? You're going to have a lot that say 0, and 0 throws off the math. Change it to be 1. Any terms that have 0 volume or 0 difficulty, change that to say 1 or 10 or something. Otherwise, it throws off the average. Because we know that if you rank, you probably not have 0 traffic. Traffic and keyword difficulty are all estimated metrics anyway. Instead of 0, put something else. And you'll get an average, this volume, this difficulty. This only works if your site has some traction already. If you're a brand new site, this isn't going to work. You kind of need to be a little bit established already to have some data. And then you can plot that data. And again, we'll give you a prompt that can help with this. You can plot this data on a bell curve. You'll have the bulk of your terms, get this much traffic and bulk your terms. This is the mean traffic and mean difficulty. And you have some on either side where you rank for some a little higher, rank for some a little lower. If you can then identify one standard deviation on either side of that mean. So if say my traffic mean is 100 and my traffic and my keyword difficulty mean is 10, but on either side of that, say it goes from 100, maybe it goes up to 120, 125, and keyword difficulty, the higher end of the standard deviation is, instead of 10 as the mean, say it goes up to 15. This is statistical specifics. If this is over anyone's head, I apologize. But now you have your mean and your standard deviation above and below your mean for both traffic and keyword difficulty. Overlap those two, that's your keyword ranking weight class. So say, for example, that your site has average ranking, your average volume is 150. I ran it for a brand. Actually, I'll pull up the spreadsheet. I ran it for a brand last night just to see if it was still, see if I could still do it. I don't want to reveal any specifics of the brand, but I'll share what we found here. And you'll run into this sometimes where if there's lots of zeros in the data, then sometimes instead of looking like a curve, it just looks like a lot of zeros and then it goes down after that. That happens sometimes. But I did this for a previous client who did like business process outsourcing. They were a call center that you could just outsource your call center to them. I'm not going to use the brand's name, but there's a list of keywords that they had. The average of all the volume, so all their keywords, again, they're a sizable brand, so they had a lot. You kind of need to have something here. But the average volume they had for all of these, 187.5. Average difficulty of their keywords, 10. Now, when you go look for new keywords to target, you just set these as your filters. Is it less than 180, 190, 200 volume? And is it less than 10 keyword difficulty? If it is in or around or lower than that, it's in your weight class. You can easily knock these out because this is the average difficulty of term, volume and difficulty wise, that you're already winning at. This is what your site as a whole is in this range of volume of keywords and difficulty. So if you find you're going after new keywords, blog or otherwise, if it's less than this threshold, you can reliably assume you'll rank pretty easily. That doesn't mean that you should omit tactics like internal links, like writing quality content, having your keyword in the important places. All those things still apply. You still need to do all those. But if you do all those, it is much more reliable and likely you will rank for this keyword. I can't say how quickly, but that you will get to page one if you do the things, because you've already shown Google you are credible enough to rank for keywords in this range. The kicker is that you go, you're at this keyword ranking weight class, and if you don't have enough data to get a clean bell curve, I would just say round up. say if 187 is your mean volume, round up to 200. If 10 is your mean keyword difficulty, round up to 12 or 13 or something. Just tack a couple on, because this is the average. You had some higher than your average that you already rank for. You already do for some, but it's not the true average, the top of a proverbial bell curve. So if you're going after new keywords, you get a batch of new keywords that are at or below your weight class, your average volume, your average difficulty, and go after them, write new content for them. Once you're ranking, rerun the math, find your new weight class, because it'll have grown and improved. And then you go again and say, okay, now the next echelon of keywords, if it was at 200 and now I'm at 250, what keywords can I find now? Say after I've ranked for a bunch of terms, my mean search volume is 200 or 250, and the mean keyword difficulty is 12 now. Well, now I've got a new set of keywords that opened up for me that I can target. So long as they're relevant to my niche, new group of keywords I can go after. Go after those, rerun the math. And you go slowly growing and competing for heavier and heavier hitting terms. It's the same way where I use weight class intentionally. It's a fighting or a boxing term where I can compete with websites or fighters of my same weight. I weigh about, for me right now, I weigh about 215 pounds. If I go fight a 265-pound person, I'm going to die. I'm never going to have a chance. But if I go fight a 150-pound or 135-pound person, I got a better shot, just because I got more punching power by being heavier. So if you go looking at keywords through the lens of where your weight class is. If you want to get even better, you run the same analysis against your competitors. What are my competitors' weight classes? My weight class is volume 200, difficulty 10, and my competitor's volume and difficulty range is less than this. That's a competitor who you go look at all their content that's winning, and you can probably stomp on it. You can probably just go eat their lunch and take their keywords because you're at a heavier weight class than them. Google trusts your site more than theirs because they're showing you for more higher volume, higher difficulty keywords. It's much more reliable, and I get much better results. I've implemented this a number of times. I get much better results looking at keywords through this lens than just through how many backlinks does it take. I'm trying to approximate how much does Google trust me? They trust me with this many terms of this much volume versus they trust me with this many backlinks I've built. It doesn't really make sense.
Right.
It doesn't really make sense to me.
So this will two questions. So I believe more the keyword difficulty is more important. I mean the weight class than the volume, because there could be volume which, of course, for an informational keyword you can have a higher volume but lower. So I think that's something which we need to be caring about in weighted average.
Very true. Yeah. So in the case of volume, you're definitely going to run into terms, especially at a site early on, you're going to run into terms where, say your keyword weight class says you only can really compete for 50, a traffic volume of 50. You may already rank for some higher than that. Like to get the average of 50, you had to also rank for bigger ones, which is why it's wise to round up, or if you can, get a standard deviation on either side, because there is still some higher than your average you do have a shot for. And lower that you do have a shot for. So it's not, I don't put it as the hard line of like nothing above this can you win, because you already are winning for things higher than your average. In terms of, I look at it through the lens of ROI, where it's like at the higher end of your standard deviation, the chances of you getting page one rankings for this are high, versus if you go for a term that's way on the outside, the chance of you getting page one rankings quickly, not as high. So target those terms still, definitely. But I would invest time early on where your chances of winning are highest. If there's a big heavy term, like say there's a big term in the industry that's going to take time to rank for, I don't know, if, for example, for this client, they do outsourced call centers. It would be like BPO outsourcing, business process outsourcing. That's a big term, high cost per click, high difficulty. For many of those, we told them, make a page now. It'll take you a year to get there. it'll take you a year. So make those, definitely. But part of the way you get there is by building your credibility over time with Google of like, you can trust us for this tier of keyword. You can trust us for this tier of keyword. You can trust us for this tier of keyword. So make the page. It's a time bomb. You got to start. You got to get there. But the way that the rising tide that lifts all ships, in my opinion, is weight class. If you can show Google we are credible enough, we provide a good enough experience to users to higher and higher volume terms, I think that's how you get there.
Now, let's say if a site is very new, how does it? It will not have any weight, so you can't have a weight class. So is there a different approach you have for that?
For new sites, you need to. It's tough because the math, you can't get the math as good. You can't get as clean of math. I think the principle stands. The underlying principle is you go whatever domain you can compete in, you compete well and then scale up. So mostly just like as a qualitative sense of like, what kinds of terms can I win for? If you're a small brand, a new brand, if you're not ranking for your branded terms, you better rank for your branded terms.
Okay.
Or do you have, if your brand name, unless your brand name is something like Apple, I don't like, where there's other words that mean that same thing. If you don't rank for your brand name, you better make sure you rank for your brand name. I would believe that it's probably as a first weight class. If you don't rank for your own brand, why can I show you for other things? Kind of a thing.
Okay.
And then just go slowly stepping up. Like, what's the next step up? Is there content? I tell a lot of brands of like, tell them either they have them do it or I've done it before, where I listen to any given 20 or 50 customer service calls or sales calls. Mm-hmm. What are the common questions and objections that customers have before they're ready to purchase? Okay. And make content around that. I'll give you an example. I worked with a brand, I didn't directly work with a brand. I partnered with someone who worked with a brand who they sold software that implements on employees' laptops to know if they're working or not. So it's like, has the mouse not moved in 6 hours? Well, the employer can tell. It was software that did that. And on every sales call, they would ask, what if our employees find out? They weren't telling employees. We told them they should tell the employees. But what if they find out? How do we message this if they find out? And the sales team was getting asked this day in and day out. And so we said, well, that's a golden piece of content. How do I explain this to my customer? It's a question about your product directly that people have about your product. Listen, I tell people this all the time. Listen to 10, 20, 50, 100 sales calls, or sit in on 10, 20, 50 sales conversations and write down the questions they have. That's them telling you what they need to know before they buy. That's them telling you their questions. All of those are blog posts. And they may not rank for the keywords associated with those may not have a ton of volume, but it's very close and adjacent to your product. And again, it's one step up from brand. Your brand terms are this, questions about your brand product, about your specific brand product, next step up. And then go scan from there. But those are probably the first two steps. If you don't rank for your brand, rank for your brand. And then I would just get listening to your customer. What's the kind of information they want to know, and answer that for them.
Okay. With that, we come to the end of our. We ran actually out of time, so with that, we ran out of. Yeah, and of course, this has been a masterclass, I would say, in modern SEO and the AI, including the keyword research. Now, where can listeners connect with you, and what's the best way to learn more about your work?
Great question. So I'm most prevalent on LinkedIn, Randy Roberts on LinkedIn, and I'm posted in there all the time. Or my brand is called mxdmarketing.com. So Randy at mxdmarketing.com, or hit me up on LinkedIn and let's make some magic happen.
Okay. And once again, thank you for giving your time, Randy.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening. If you are an agency owner, consultant, or SEO professional, use one insight from today and apply it this week. You will be far ahead of the market. This is Navneet Kaushal, and you have been listening to the Agency Insider Show. Thank you.